So here's the good news, buddy. I went to the parole board today.
You went today?
I went today.
Oh, right.
And it's going to be a few months, but I got parole upon completion. I get parole.
No shit.
Upon completion of a program. So I'm trying to get into this program that they have here before February 18th, because that's when their program starts, February 18th. And then I would be out of here, February, March, April. I'd be out of here in May.
Wow.
But now, right. So here's the other thing, is that they have another program that's on the outside called Community Connections Corrections. And that one is for only 60 days. But I have to fill out the paperwork for it right here, so I'm trying to get all of this taken care of. I'm going to go fill out all this paperwork.
Okay, well, Dan, that's great. Right. Congratulations. I did mail a letter out, but I didn't know the date of your hearing, so I don't know. Hopefully it made it in time, but I did mail one out.
Oh, they got it. Yep, they got it. They told me. I told them that the therapeutic YouTube videos that I was making was very therapeutic for me and stuff like that. Yeah. And so everything went well. Here's a question for you. You said there was a couple people that had said, "Hey, that's not Professor Doom." And of course, I'm not able to see this for myself, but you have stated to me that there are people out there who actually are doubting you, that you're actually talking to Professor Doom. And well, all I can tell everybody out there is, listen to my voice and the way I'm talking to you, and go listen to my videos at Professor Doom 2, and you'll see that this is indeed the Professor Doom. With that being said, forget all the Maddie. I'm not even going to entertain the whole conversation about Maddie D for Truth and any of that other stuff that's going on out there about our little rift from the Burns, Oregon situation, because that's exactly where it stems from. But I do want to talk about a few things that I find very, very interesting here as of late. And one of the things that I did mention in our last video was about Saul Payas. Okay?
Yeah.
So here's something that I find that's very interesting that no one seems to have brought up. And let me go through my notes here. And one of my notes that I noticed was, and remember, I have to rely on mainstream media. I don't have at my beck and call the internet that I can go and look at these things for myself and do any kind of research and backup and anything like that. But so Saul Payas allegedly killed herself at some kind of what was it? Some kind of, I don't want to say a park, but was it some kind of like do you know where it was?
So I'm looking right now, and it says that I'm on a website called Heavy.com, and it says that Saul Payas had an infatuation with Columbine.
Well, here's the story that I got from all this. Okay, and I didn't mean to cut you off. But
go ahead.
So Saul Payas leaves Florida. She goes to Colorado. But she takes a flight, okay? But so allegedly she calls in Colorado to purchase a gun at Colorado, right? Okay. She's inquiring about their gun laws. Fine. Okay. We can go with that. But here's the problem that I have. So she takes a flight, and she doesn't rent a car. What she allegedly does is she picks up a ride share to where she ultimately ends her life. So the ride share drops her off, and when all of the information comes out about this girl and how the police are looking for her, that's when the ride share guy notifies the police that, hey, I took this girl to this such and such location. Now, here's the problem that I have. If she purchased a freaking shotgun in Colorado, how come the rideshare guy even picked her up with the gun to begin with? It's not like you can hide a shotgun down your pant leg.
Yes.
It's not like she hid it in her panties or her bra or anything. So I'm just wondering, where in the hell did she have the shotgun? And how come he never even mentioned it until it was never even mentioned by him in any of the reports? I'm looking at my notes. They were never mentioned. So I'm wondering, why did you pick her up with the freaking shotgun in her hand?
Yeah, that doesn't make much more sense. even if somebody did pick her up, that would definitely be something that you would remember and would report in your statements. You would mention the fact, like, hey, this girl, I just gave her a ride. By the way, she had a 12-gauge shotgun.
Right. And why would you? Okay, I can only imagine why you would buy a 12-gauge shotgun, is because that's the only gun really that you can purchase a 22 rifle or a shotgun without any kind of background check in most states. In most states, you can do that. Handguns and I hate to call them assault weapons, because that's what the freaking gun control idiots would like to call it, or the newest term that they've created over the past few years is they call it a long gun.
Long gun.
You can't purchase one of those without some kind of background check. The whole freaking story does not make sense. And like I said in our last talk that got broadcast, her name gives it away. Saul Payas. There's a reason why they named this girl Saul Payas. And soon I'll be getting out here in the next few months, because I did gain parole today. So in the next few months, I'll be out to do some research to find out exactly what Payas means. Now, I do notice that her father's name is Gardy, Gardi, Gardy Payas. And anybody out there who's listening to this, take a dive into this and see what you can find out about what these names mean, because I don't believe the story. And if you're going to create a story, then you look to the names to see exactly what they're trying to say in their story itself. So next thing I wanted to talk about was this earthquake that happened last year, 2019, at the Naval Air Station, China Lake. You familiar with that? China Lake earthquake, or Ridge Crest, I do believe. Let me see my notes here. Ridge Crest, something like that. Okay, but here's what's interesting. There is a Navy base that is right there at China Lake. It's actually a naval research base.
Reported that have been there and escaped, that the government's hiding from World War II. If it's the same thing, and UFO research.
Well, they have an underground facility.
Yeah, they have
they have a topographic and an underground facility.
Dome. That's what I was thinking of. They have the dome base there, the deep underground military base.
But they also do, and this was from the 1990s. There was I think it was 94. There was an issue that came up where they were doing weather modification research at this naval base in China Lake. Now you can research this up a little bit and look at China Lake Naval Base, and then look for weather research. They were doing it's called weather warfare research. And I remember this when I did my whole HARP a video that I did on the HARP system up there in Alaska, and I had come across a story about the naval research base at China Lake. And so I was thinking to myself here just recently, I was going, well, wait a minute. So China Lake has had this earthquake, and I'm wondering if there's any kind of weather warfare research that they were doing that may have brought this earthquake on. I don't know.
Well, there's one headline. The one headline that it's a YouTube video says that 100% proof that it was an explosion at China Lake. It wasn't an earthquake.
So it was an explosion, but a 7.1 on the Richter scale, and they're saying it was an explosion.
Well, you know, in the USGS they falsify the readings all the time. So who knows what it really was? And I'm just reading the headlines, but they'll say that it was an explosion. And I'll watch the video and I'll tell you back what it says. But that's just what it said. So, but when I look up their weather warfare stuff, it comes up as Naval Air Weapons Station at China Lake. And so it's a weapon station is what's coming up.
Right, that's what it's called, Naval Air Weapons Station. But if you look, they've been known to do weather warfare research there as early as 1994, as I remember correctly. So check it out.
So I did. Now it's coming up that their weather management program. Their warfare is called weather management.
Okay, weather management.
Yeah, but that sounds so much better.
That's the same thing as saying weather warfare.
Oh, yeah, of course.
When you're saying weather management, what are you trying to manage weather? Why don't you just let it be on its own? It's going to be what it's going to be. And if you're trying to manage it, well, then you're harnessing it for maybe some nefarious purposes. We were about ready to be cut off on the last call. You'd asked me about the pay and exactly how would you go about finding out.
Well, so what I would do first probably is just to look up the place of origin, like the what's the word I'm looking for? To find out.
This is when
go ahead.
When I ran into situations like this before, what I did is I would go, what is the meaning of, and then I would type chaos in. And then it would come up when you're doing it with Google, it would come up with in Hebrew or Czechoslovakian or Russian or blah, blah, blah. So what you would do is now obviously, since it's most likely some kind of secret society cabal who's put on this little display for us of Saul Payas, I would start looking at Hebrew first. See what Payas means in Hebrew.
Yeah.
See what it might mean in French. See what it might mean in, I don't think it's Russian, but it's
so
one
it
of those
says here,
I would almost
it says that it's French. Payas is French. It means trial by jury, which is pretty interesting.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
Yeah,
because,
that has all kinds of implications.
See, here's the thing. Let me tell you something. If you look at the Economist magazine cover of 2016, 2017, there was the cover where there was the sun. Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing about the secret societies and the cabal, and you could look back at Nazi Germany and the whole Black Sun Society, and the Black Sun Society was all about preparing the Aryan race for the return of a certain god in the age of Aquarius. So let me tell you this. The Economist magazine was putting it out right there. You could see the god of time, which, because if you look at that sun, it had numerical, it had a clock hands on the clock numbers on there and everything. So it was representing Cronus. Well, Cronus is none other than Helios and Sol and Saturn and so on. And if you ever wonder why a lot of those Pixar movies, they have the exact same pizza truck in their movies, and it has the emblem of Saturn right on the top of the truck.
Yeah.
Because going back to the Black Sun Society, it's all about the return of Saturn, Sol, Cronus, in the age of Aquarius. And why do you think that they chose her name as being Sol? And what exactly is this so-called God going to do when he does return? Is there going to be some kind of trial of mankind? Is there going to be some kind of trial by jury? Is that what they're trying to say? I don't know. But all I can tell you is I don't buy the story, and I know that nobody in their right mind is going to name their daughter Saul.
Yes.
And another, think about this, too, everybody who's listening. If you take a look at the images of Sol Invictus on Google Images, and you're going to see one where there are 7 rays coming off the head, just like the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah, that's Helios.
That's Helios and that's Sol Invictus. They're one and the same. Helios is Sol Invictus.
Yes.
And they're all Saturn Cronus. So if you take a look at the Statue of Liberty, you're going to see that was modeled after Sol Invictus. So remember what we've been talking about is the god, or the return of this certain god in the age of Aquarius, and they've been having it right there in the harbor of New York for the longest.
Yeah.
That's who that is. That's who that represents.
Oh, no, that's crazy. So there is no difference, because sometimes people will argue about the Statue of Liberty being Apollo or Helios or Sol Invictus, but they're all the same.
They're all the same.
Yeah.
Except for Apollo was allegedly one of the sons of, Apollo was a completely different god. And they do confuse that, and it's not Apollo, but Sol is Helios, and they are all Cronus and Saturn. They're all one and the same. And another thing that's pretty interesting is that they're all actually the god Enki of the Sumerians. So if you take a look at the crop circle that was the crop circle that was discovered in, I think, 2010 or 12, and it talked about Inky. It even mentioned his name. But guess what, everybody? I hate to we have to lock down here where I'm at.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, I'm looking at the pictures right now of the Inky crop circle. It's a 7-pointed star.
There you go. Yeah, are you seeing it? Are you seeing the Inky crop circle?
Yeah.
So if you put this all together, Saul Sender, Saul Teus, Inky, and there was also a crop circle that said, "Beware of something bearing false gifts." I got a quick moment where they are going down the bottom here. I'm locking the doors, but I'm on the upper tier. So this did give me one more minute too. Is I want everybody out there who remembers about Deagle.com, DEAGLE, or maybe it was EL, but it was Deagle.com. And you guys remember that they had a projection on their website talking about that by the year 2025, the United States would be decimated in population down to 51 million by the year 2025. And just think about this, everybody. What you're seeing going on right now, this whole thing with Donald Trump being president, I'm not going to get into the whole political aspect of all this, but I will say this, that no matter what happens, if Donald Trump is not president, or whether he is, something is getting ready to be coming down. And with this whole thing that we're looking at with Little Baron Trump, you guys remember a book that came out in the late 1800s, 1890, 91, somewhere around there, Little Baron Trump. And isn't it just coinky dinky that President Trump names his son Baron Trump? And there's 3 books in the series. There is Underground Adventures or something of Underground Journey or something along those lines. That's number 2. And the 3rd book in that series from the late 1800s of Little Baron Trump was The Last President. Does this coincide with what Deagle.com was telling us, that the population of not only the United States but a lot of Aryan countries are going to be decimated, and not only that, but North Korea is going to be completely wiped out, devoid of population by the year 2025. So something may be coming down the line here. I don't know yet, but we shall see. But I do have to go. He's getting ready to get to my door. Hey, I'll be right there.
Okay.
Don't shut my door.
Then just give me a call back.
Oh yeah, he just passed up my door. Good, so we're good. And you can even leave that in if you want. You don't even have to edit that out. So everybody, there's so much. I have all the stuff that was sent in to me that I requested from, my contacts and stuff. But I do like Hillary Clinton's brother being killed. That's something to keep in mind.
Well, anybody with dirt on Hillary Clinton ends up committing suicide.
They take 2 shots to the back of the head and they get found with a suicide gun in their backpack. Yeah, how do you like that?
That's convenient, huh?
Hold on, 1 second. Hold on. Don't go anywhere.
Oh, I go anywhere. I was just looking up this China Lake earthquake thing.
Okay.
And I found a neat article that says that they were trying to get repairs, like trying to get some money to fix the place up right before this happened, and then right after it happened, they got approved for $100 million. And the one guy says that there's been an internal struggle for all these dumb bases around the earthquake, like the seismic data on the earthquake points to a man-made underground bomb. So he thinks that they blew up one of the underground bases and then got money for the whole thing. I just got home from work about 10 minutes ago, and the only comment was somebody that yelled at me, called me a shield because they said that you're dead. And I said, well, here's the address right here. Why don't you call Doom and let him know that he's dead? Because I don't think he's been told yet.
They said I'm dead?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, they said Professor Doom's dead. What the
Yeah. So I told him, I said, well, expect a resurrection here in a couple months, but you might want to write him and let him know that he's dead, because I don't think anybody told him yet. Like, I thought it was funny enough when the one guy from the other video, he's like, oh yeah, this isn't Doom, it's not even him. And I thought that was pretty funny. But then this morning when I read the guy's comment, it was like, Professor Doom is dead, and get the fuck out of here.
Did you get your headphones in yet?
Yeah, I did. They were in the mail this morning. I haven't tried them out. I was going to. It doesn't look like. It sounds like you got a drill running or something. You okay?
If you want to add this piece to what we did last night, that's fine. Because there's something I wanted to talk about that we did not get a chance to talk about last night. Something very interesting.
Okay, great.
So. Okay, as I'm sure everybody's aware, there was a huge fire, alleged huge fire, that took place at the Notre Dame Cathedral in France. What was that? What was it? August of last year?
Yeah, it was a couple of months ago, because I remember looking about it in the facility I was in too, and I knew there was something more going on, but our access of information is really limited.
Well, you know, and I hate to say alleged fire, because what they showed, it looked like there was some kind of event that took place there, but as the after effects of the whole fire, it doesn't look like, from the photos that I've seen, that there was much damage that was done to the interior where the alleged fire took place. But here is what is interesting about this location. Okay, number one, the Notre Dame Cathedral is the location where, after 1307, okay, and for anybody who has not kept up on the history, the year 1307, October...
Friday the 13th.
Well,
yeah.
Right, that's where the Knights Templar comes in. That's where they were rounded up on Friday the 13th, 1307. I remember it was just the King of France and the Pope, because the King of France owed a lot of money to the Templars. And so they coordinated to round them up on that day. Okay. So later on, after all this, a couple of individuals were put to death. One, I think his name was Guy Mollet, was killed, was burned at the stake at the Notre Dame Cathedral. Okay. So we know that there's a pretty huge goings-on between the history of the Knights Templar and the Church. The Knights Templar, by way of association, has an association with the Freemasons. Okay. So now let's take a look at some of the architecture, or I should say some of the, not so much the architecture, but let's call it the artwork, the Art Deco. There are gargoyles that were all over the Notre Dame Cathedral, and one of them is the exact duplicate of an art piece that's at the Denver International Airport. And the Denver International Airport has a lot of Freemason connection. You can see there's a Freemason plaque right there that talks about the New World Airport Commission, and it has connection to Martin Marietta, or Lockheed Martin, which later became known. One of the gargoyles at the church there. And okay, so take a look at one of the gargoyles there, and you'll see that it's the exact gargoyle that is at the Denver International Airport that sits right in a Samsonite suitcase that is up on top of the wall. Can you see that? And you'll see that it's the exact same one as at the Denver, or the same one that's at the Notre Dame Cathedral, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sure if you bring that up and you can fit that in with the with whatever here coming up here pretty soon.
Oh yeah, I can see. Yeah, I see it. I got them both pulled up right next to each other.
One.
Yeah.
Right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, very interesting. Very interesting, isn't it? So now the question then becomes, is the mural where you see the German, there's like this German guy with a mask, and he's like wielding a sword across, it looks like a burnt out building. You take a look at that mural, and there's like a bunch of, like, I don't know, some kind of the women that have like scarves on or whatever, and they're holding like dead babies. And now you look at that mural right there, take a look at the building that is right directly behind the German guy and off to his left shoulder.
Oh, that almost looks like the burned out cathedral building.
Could that be the cathedral right there in that imagery? Yeah, I wondered about that, and you know, so I don't have any of these images before me. All I can do is go off of memory. So
Yeah, well, that's pretty good. So you did all that off memory?
oh yeah. But here's something else that I think that you're going to find interesting, and you won't be able to pull this up on your computer because you would have to watch the movie. So watch this. In the movie Armageddon, there is a scene where there is a meteorite, or I should say a meteor, that it's getting ready to hit the Earth, right? So what they need to do is the asteroid, they have to blow it up in half. Do you remember the storyline to Armageddon? You remember they have to land on there?
Yeah.
They have to drill, and then they have to blow it apart.
Yeah, I remember the plot. It was like a cheesy Bruce Willis.
Well, what happens is there is one particular little small asteroid, or I should say meteor or meteorite or whatever you want to call it. It's actually pretty big, and it does hit Earth. And what it says is it shows an image of Paris, France. And the meteor, or little asteroid, hits it, and it's all CGI. Everything about the whole scene is CGI to make it look like it was really Paris that just exploded or got bombed by this asteroid.
Mm-hmm.
But with CGI, you know that they had to have done something on purpose, right? You know that they did it by computer. Well, interestingly enough, when you watch the scene, CGI'd into the scene is that exact same gargoyle right on the screen. Bam! And there's that gargoyle that you see on the Notre Dame Cathedral, because it is in Paris, France.
Yeah.
And it shows up right there on your screen in the movie, CGI'd, being blown up.
What do you think the Templar connection to the fires is? Do you think that there is some kind of some underlying hidden connection there?
Well, I do believe that we're coming up upon a time. There still is an esoteric war being waged between Catholicism and the secret societies. Exactly what we're seeing here, I think, is one of the little manifestations with the Notre Dame Cathedral right there. It very well could be a piece of the puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
1 minute remaining.
Now the thing is maybe that's exactly what they were saying in the mural, is that this is what we're going to do to the Notre Dame Cathedral later on. They're going to claim that, oh yeah, the fire started because of some kind of they were not reconstruction, but they were remodeling or redoing the cathedral, and then they had some kind of construction accident or something, and something went awry, and then there was a fire.
Yeah.
I don't believe that. I think that they're going to take every precaution they could to protect it, because that whole thing is made up of wood. The whole spire location was made up of wood. They're not going to be that careless with it. I seriously doubt. So I think that sure did lend to the moment, to the perfect opportunity for them to make their move.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it was a time of like social unrest too, because there was like all those major Paris protests that were going on about the same time, where there were like 1 million people protesting on the streets.
Hello, you have a prepaid call from
Philip.
an inmate at Crossroads Correctional Center. To accept this call, press or say 5. This call will be recorded and subject to monitoring at any time. Thank you for using IT Solutions. You may begin speaking now.
Yeah, you could put that in the video. That way people could, you make believers out of them, and I'm actually talking to you from...
Oh, yeah, and that you're not dead. I mean, I don't know if they think I'm talking to you from beyond the grave or what. That's great.
What's interesting to me is that tells me that there are people out there who go, you know what? I remembered you really well, and that's not him. Well, that's, I don't know why they'd be saying it, but, hey, the thing is at least they know who I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At least know the name. That's good enough for me. I'm cool with that. So they can say whatever they want.
Yeah.
Going back to what we're talking about. Well, like I said, we're seeing a lot of things going on nowadays, that there is a behind-the-scenes war going on esoterically, like I said, between religion, Catholicism, and the secret societies. There has been a war. There has been an infiltration of the Knights of Malta, which is that military arm of the Catholic Church, that has been infiltrated by the Freemasons. They know it, and there's not much they can do about that. It's already there. It's already coming.
Yeah.
And the Knights of Malta, believe me, they are no freaking saints. There's been so many bad apples, like Mr. Queenie, the one who started Monsanto Corporation. That guy was a Knights of Malta. Oliver North. You could keep going. The Bushes, Ronald Reagan, he was an honorary Knights of Malta. But, there's going to be people who are listening to this go, well, Ronald Reagan was a pretty good president. Well, let me tell you this. Most of his cabinet, his presidential cabinet, was comprised of shadow government corporate entities like Caspar Weinberger, George Shultz, Alexander Haig, all those different people, right? George Shultz, he's also the heir to Standard Oil, the Rockefeller.
Yeah.
All these people, these were people that were put into their position for a reason, because the corporate entities that control this government. I'm on the shadow government kick right now, buddy. Bechtel Corporate, and I have been for a couple years. The couple years before I ended up here, that's exactly what I was into.
Yeah, the Bechtel Corporation, they have their hands in a little bit of everything, from like Raytheon down to the Teamsters unions. The Bechtel, and most people have never heard of them.
Sure. Well, not only that, but Stephen and Warren Bechtel were two individuals that were presiding over the Bohemian Grove back in the earlier 1900s, 1930s, 40s, 50s, around there. Not only that, but Warren Bechtel, they called the six companies. That's what it's called. Six companies is the name of the conglomerate that gained the contract to build the Hoover Dam back in the late 1920s and the early 30s. It comprised of the dude Kaiser Permanente. That guy got his start, and he had a corporation that joined with the Bechtels, and he was involved in the building of the Hoover Dam. And then he went to building ships for the Navy, for the government. So, Kaiser shipyards, and then he decided to build the Kaiser Permanente brand.
What about the Vanguard? That's like an investors group, and they are the main shareholders of just about everything they have Monsanto and Whole Foods, but they also are the head shareholders of Amazon and Walmart. Like Jeff Bezos and the Waltons are just to put a face to the companies, but really the main shareholders are an investor group called the Vanguards. Like I did something on Walmart and Amazon are having a trade war right now, but if you look at who really owns them, it's just an illusion of choice, because they're both owned by this Vanguard group. So your money is going to the same people regardless of where you spend it. So it's an illusion of choice, and it's like manufactured competition. The same people own all these companies and corporations.
I never got into the Vanguard. I don't think it was. I'm not sure how long they've been around, and I know I just heard of them just not long before my incarceration. But one is that I can believe that if you really want to look at some of the heavy hitters that are there, because all of these corporate heads, they sit at so many different boards of different corporations. It's not funny. You can have a pharmaceutical guy sitting on a financial board like Bear Stearns, or you'll find a General Electric. He's sitting over here on frickin' Raytheon, and Raytheon. This guy here, he's sitting on Halliburton. and they're all interchangeable. They all are interconnected. The Carlyle group is the one that, oh my God, you want to talk about some very nefarious bastards. Carlyle group, Frank Carlucci III, these individuals were part of the CIA way back in the day, and they also got started with Wackenhut. Wackenhut was a very interesting group that strictly worked for the government. But they're allegedly a private security company, right? But they get their contracts with the government. And then Wackenhut, I don't know if you ever heard about this story, did a little enterprise over at the Cabazon Indian Reservation where they were weapons testing, and they created the whole continuity of government. Oliver North over there at this weapons testing with the Iran-Contra gets linked to the Cabazon Indian Reservation. There was a guy, Danny Casolaro, that's his name, a reporter who stumbled across the story of everything that was going on at this Indian reservation, and he was killed in a freaking motel room, and all of his notes, he was getting ready to meet somebody secretly, and all of his notes were
oh yeah, okay, I see. Found in a hotel bathtub.
Absolutely.
It says journalist Danny Casolaro uncovered a global conspiracy called the Octopus.
And that is what made me so on the heels of the shadow government, is that whole octopus story right there in the Cabazon Indian Reservation, because it was Wackenhut that was secretly having a deal with the Indian Reservation to do testing of the rail gun. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about in the 1980s. We're talking about 1980, bud. 1981. How is it that there was a rail gun actually being tested back then? And they had it. They were testing it. But yeah, Oliver North, the whole continuity of government, the whole INSLAW program.
Yeah, that's what
they were modifying with Michael Riconosciuto was altering that program so they could go to all kinds of different countries, and the United States government could secretly get into the back doors of these programs that they were selling them to these other countries.
It says that they, of course he committed suicide, and all his notes were missing. He slit his wrist. Medical professionals found problems with the details. The cut marks on his wrists were highly unusual because of the lack of hesitancy marks. He'd never seen such deep incisions, and he doesn't know how. He damn near severed his whole entire hands off, it looks like. Plus, he had such a high amount of antidepressants in his bloodstream, he shouldn't have been able to have been even awake. And he had never been on antidepressants before. He had no prescriptions for them. And so if somebody's going to get high, they're not going to get high on, like, Zoloft. They're going to be,
No, there was... Someone had slipped him that, maybe whether it was in a drink or something like that, and they pretty much put him out, and then that way they were able to make their move on him, without any kind of resistance or him leaving or there being any kind of skin particles underneath his fingernails or anything like that, because they pretty much made him dead to the world. Whatever.
So going back to the war between the occultist groups and the Vatican, now this Pope is supposedly like the first Jesuit Pope that we've had, the Black Pope, and
the last Pope.
The last Pope, yeah.
The prophecy, yeah. That's
Father Malachi.
That's what's interesting. Think about that for a second. We're talking about the prophecy of the last Pope, and we have him allegedly right now with this Jesuit Pope. And what were we talking about on our video or the recording last night?
The last president.
The last president. We're talking about the last president, and Mr. Donald Trump has a son named Barron Trump, and now we have a book from the late 1800s talking about little Barron Trump. And the third book in that series is called The Last President.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you ever got to go to Deagle.com and check it out like I mentioned, but what's interesting about Deagle.com is that a bunch of us researchers were finding that, and they had mentioned, Deagle.com responded to our attacks on their website, because we were stating that they were putting it out there that the populations were going to be decimated by the year 2025. They claimed, hey, we were hacked. We didn't put that up there.
Yeah, that's convenient. But
hold on. Here's how we proved that they were lying. Because we went on the Wayback Machine and we saw that Deagle.com had been posting these decimated populations for the past 4 to 5 years before that. So are you going to tell me that you were hacked every single freaking year? No. So guess what they did? When we proved that they were lying, then they came out and said, well, okay, here's the deal. We've got this information from, the United States government, the Department of Defense, the CIA. This is where we get our information, and we can only transmit exactly what they give us. Why in the hell are some of these agencies of the United States feeding you information that the population of the United States is going to be decimated down to 51 million people by the year 2025? Everything that we're talking about right now, about the last president, the last pope, all that stuff, it seems to conveniently fit in the time frame with what Deagle.com was broadcasting about the year 2025. And I'll tell you this, they didn't just say that it was all going to happen all at one time. The years leading up to 2025, 2023, 2024, that there was going to be loss of life. It could be coming in the next couple of years, buddy. Everything that we're seeing may be just a little bit of clues, like the Notre Dame Cathedral fire, what they were showing us in the
1 minute remaining.
apocalyptic murals at the Denver International Airport, how it maybe have a connection to that fire of the Notre Dame Cathedral. I want you to take a look at the other apocalyptic murals at Johns Hopkins University. Take a look at those, because it says right there, he is coming. It's all the apocalyptic murals right there talking about something's going to be coming. And what we were talking about last night, what are we about the crop circles, Inky, Saturn?
Yeah, the return of Helios. Well,
exactly.
Hey, if we get cut off, then call back one more time.
Yeah.
We're on some good stuff.
Okay, I will. I'll call you right back. And listen, I'm not calling from the grave. I'm calling from prison, everybody. This is Professor Doom talking to you live from Montana State.
Well, jackass.
Now you know I'm not talking to you from the grave. I am still alive. Here I be. I am in prison in Montana, and we'll get into the whole reasons behind that when I get out. Because I will be getting out in the next 6 months or less. Should be 6 months or less. But if you'd like to contact me through snail mail, you can. Philip Craigie, Craigie, and make sure you put the AO number down there, 302-3754. The address is 50 Crossroads Drive, Shelby, Montana, 59474. And I do have about 30 to 40 envelopes, so I will respond to everybody who reaches out to me, and I'd love to hear from whoever wants to contact me out there. But thought I'd throw that in there, and let's get back to what we were talking about. So, yeah, that's all the apocalyptic murals there, buddy. There's Johns Hopkins University, and there is what we were talking about. The Statue of Liberty is none other than Saul Invictus. You can see in the background of that mural, there's a serpent in the water, and then over to the right-hand side, you're going to see what appears to be some kind of angelic being that is like pouring water, like the water bearer, like maybe the age of Aquarius. I don't know. I could be far-reaching right there, but there is an angelic being that's pouring some kind of fluid, possibly water, onto the fire of New York right there. And what is interesting about this,
it shows like the Statue of Liberty is on fire, and there is something that's maybe an archon that's pouring water down by the dragon. There's a scorpion on one side of it with the 5 and the 6 pointed stars on the American flag.
Right. There appears to be some kind of flags that are up in that run around the rafter of that mural.
There's like a banner. There's like the British flags, and then the Saturn cube, like the 6 pointed star. It's called the Star of David for most people, just to be easy, but it's not the Jew star. It's like a Rothschild's Saturn seal.
Sure. But you want to know what's interesting about that star that you see right there? Okay. So if you take a look at the movie, or the short little animated movie that you can find on YouTube called I Pet Goat 2, And if you watch it, and you'll see when they show you the Statue of Liberty, right under the Statue of Liberty, you'll see in the water, there's the Star of David right underneath there. And I can go into great detail. We don't even have enough time to do all this, but I'll tell you this. That whole Star of David leads to who the God of the Jews was. And it's none other than Sol, Invictus, Helios, Saturn, Cronus, all one and the same, and Ra. They're all one and the same.
Last night when Marduk came up in that crop circle, now Marduk is also Moloch and Baal. Are they also Saturn?
No. Listen, there's the Father and there's the Son. Okay, let me go down the line and tell you who the Father is, and they're all one. You have Ra, you have Saturn, you have Cronus, you have El, you have Enki. They're all one and the same along the line. Now the Son, you have Osiris, you have Baal, you have Marduk, you have Zeus, Jupiter. They're all one and the same. You know, it's really interesting. The Romans, when they built on the temple of Baalbek right there, because Baalbek has a platform, the Trilithon, that's like 1,200 tons, that predates the Roman temple. And the Roman temple that was built on top of that platform right there, they called it the temple to Baal Jupiter. That's because Baal is Jupiter. Jupiter Zeus is none other than Baal. Now, watch this. Tel Dor, T-E-L space D-O-R. There was an archaeological dig that commenced at Tel Dor, and they found that there were images of Baal with a fez hat on. Now, where do you think the fez hat plays in with the Baal? Oh, yes, the Shriners.
The Shriners, you're right. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah. And now you're going to understand exactly why that freaking fez hat that they wear has that image of the Sphinx with the sword, the saber sword that runs right underneath his head. That is because that fez hat is associated with the god Baal and Osiris. When you look at Tel Dor in the archaeological digs, they found Baal god with two different hats on. One, they found his image with a fez hat on, and the other one, they found him with the Osiris hat. Yes, look at Osiris, and he wears something that looks like an upside-down U on his head. And they found those exact images at Tel Dor, where you would find Baal, because Tel Dor was in the land of Canaan, or Israel, or Syria, whatever you want to call it. So why was there images of their god Baal with a fez hat? Well, now you know this where the Shriners and why they wear the fez hat, and it's not because of some location called Fez in the Middle East, and also that Baal is none other than Osiris, as I just pointed out. So Osiris, here's what's interesting. In the late 1980s, Procter & Gamble put a weird symbol on their products, and if you looked on the back of any Procter & Gamble product, you would have found this little round circle emblem of a moon man. Now, guess who was the one who was behind putting that emblem on Procter & Gamble? Norm Augustine, the exact frickin' guy who owned Lockheed Martin. So Lockheed Martin was the CEO of Procter & Gamble, and he incorporated that logo on Procter & Gamble products in the late 1980s and early 90s, I do believe. But when Procter & Gamble, or when they were called out about this being some satanic symbol, they took it. They claimed no, it wasn't, and they took it off of their products. What they did is they started secreting little symbols in their products, like Pert Plus. When you take a look at Pert Plus, all you have to do is Google Pert Plus and Osiris or Jupiter. You're going to see that the Pert Plus is the symbol for the planet Jupiter in their product. So Jupiter is none other than Osiris, and so they were venerating Osiris secretly in their products. So all you have to do now is, when you start looking at other Google images, you're going to find that there are other people that have made the connection between Osiris and Jupiter. So anyway, these corporations, yes, and I did mention this in that one video that we were talking about earlier, the one that you just uploaded about the Bennu and the Osiris Rex program by NASA. Isn't it weird that they created imagery of Osiris in the NASA images, and you look around his neck, it looks to appear to be a DNA strand. The DNA strand is made up of blue and green. That's where what does that signify? Well, Osiris was one of the only persons who had two different parents by two different gods. One of them was the Ajiji god, okay, which is green, and then you had the other one, which was the Draco gods, or the Anunnaki, and they were the blue bloods. And that is why you see that the royalty of Europe, they can trace their lineage from none other than, yes, you're talking about Mr. Draco himself, or the, who's the one guy that stabbed everybody and put them on poles and stuff and translated?
Oh, Vlad the Impaler?
Vlad the Impaler, right. He was, where they named Dracula from? Anyway, that whole thing was, why didn't the royalty trace their lineage back to that guy?
They do. They were just Prince Charles was just confirming his relation to Vlad the Impaler just a couple weeks ago.
Right, because he's related to the Anunnaki, or I should say the Draconian, the particular gods that came from Draco or Thuban, because Thuban is none other than the constellation Draco. And the whole story of Dracula come by Bram Stoker, who was a member of the Hermetic Order of Golden Dawn, and he was incorporating the whole story of Draco from Vlad the Impaler.
The Hermetic Order of Golden Dawn, I think that was who Aleister Crowley was in that also.
He was part of that as well. Did you notice the story of Dracula, how he was some kind of white-skinned individual who fed on blood, and he couldn't stand the sunlight? Doesn't that sound like your underground gods and stuff?
Yeah.
Who, they burn real easily.
The albinos, the mole people.
Right. The mole people. You were talking about how they look like how they were albinos, and they had been underground for a long time.
For the two bloodlines, is that like the two Alpha and Omega bloodlines? Like when Jesus says, "I am the beginning and the end, the Alpha and the Omega."
And that's where the Knights Templar come in, because they had coins that went back to a god named Abraxas, and Abraxas is your Gnostic god who claimed to be the Alpha and the Omega. In their coins, you can see it. It says that he's the Alpha and the Omega, and that's why I'm saying he was part serpent and part other god, a part bird god and a part serpent god. And that's where our blood types come from. A blood type, O blood type, and B blood type. Why do you think why wouldn't it be A, B, and C blood type? Why was it A, B, and O? One is because Alpha Draconis, and the O is the Omega blood type, your O blood type, and that is your green blood.
Inmate at Crossroads Correctional Center. To accept this call, press 5. This call will be recorded and subject to monitoring at any time. Thank you for using IC Solutions. You may begin speaking now.
Time sure does go by fast when you're having fun.
I know, this is great. Well, this is great. I mean, you can call back all night as long as you're allowed access to the phone. I don't care.
Hey, nobody's wanting to give on the phone. Use it up.
Hell yeah.
But here, let me get back to a train of thought that I was just thinking about. If everybody thinks about it, if you think about it logically, and that's what I advocate for, logical thinking. Check this out. There seems to be a big push about wanting to know the DNA of every person on this planet. So obviously, they're looking for something in particular. And there seems to be some kind of action by the government to keep track of Rh negative blood types, but a specific blood type at that. O negative. Now that's exactly what we're talking about Osiris. The reason why he called himself the Alpha and the Omega, or the reason why that Abraxas called himself Alpha and the Omega, is because his parentage was from two different gods. And because I've already told you that Enki is the main guy, okay, and his son Marduk, all you have to do is look this yourself. Marduk is the son of Enki, okay, and Enki is an Anunnaki god. Why is it that all of the Sumerian tablets mention that Marduk claimed to be a member of the Ajiji gods and not the Anunnaki? Because he took his descent line straight from his mother, and Enki had a child with Damkina. Damkina was an Ajiji goddess. Now, watch this. Rhea, who is the mother of Zeus Jupiter, and Saturn, who is the father of Zeus Jupiter, Rhea is named after a bird. Okay? The Ajiji are the bird line gods. And Rhea, there's a reason why the Rhea bird is named after her. And Enki, who is none other than Chronos Saturn, okay, he is that Alfred Draconis bloodline. And that's why you see that that Abraxas had claimed to be the Alpha and the Omega, the two different bloodlines. Now, here's what's interesting about that. If you take a look at, we're talking about serpents and birds, right? The Anunnaki appear to be some kind of serpent bloodline because you can see the images of Enki, and he appears to have some kind of serpent legs. Okay. Well, that's exactly what you see in the image of Abraxas on the coins of the Knights Templar. He has serpent legs, right?
The serpent, feathered serpent, that's Quetzalcoatl, isn't that? Or what's the Mayan deity?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's exactly right. There you go. Quetzalcoatl is none other than your Abraxas, your Osiris, your Baal. That is who came to visit. And there's another thing, too. That's another interesting point that you bring up about Quetzalcoatl. Because if you take a look at the Denver International Airport murals, and you take a look at some of the small children right there, and there's a couple of caskets that they're standing over, right behind the top of their heads right there, there is a couple of glass boxes. And one of the glass boxes says the Quetzal bird. And the Quetzal bird is named after Quetzalcoatl, the plumed serpent god. And now that Quetzal bird, later on, after whatever apocalyptic scene happens, there you'll see that in the background there, if I remember correctly, there is the Stonehenge all the way in the back behind the children, way back in the distance.
There's a lithic monument in the background, and then there's a forest on fire too. It looks like, California or Australia or something like that.
It could be. That could be all part. That's good that you mentioned that. It could have something to do with the Australian fire, because if you look at there appears to be over to the left-hand side, there appears to be death of animals going on. And here's the other thing, is that in one of the other murals, when the apocalyptic scene is over and all the kids are now turning their weapons or the swords into plowshares, one of the things that I mentioned in my video is that Norm Augustine is very huge into the Boy Scouts. And if you take a look at the after effects of the apocalyptic scenery, all the kids, the one kid that happens to be turning the plowshare is this kid who's wearing a Boy Scout uniform. And I don't know if that has anything. And now take a look at one of the other scenes right there. All of the kids are huddled around a tree of life, or a little bush, this little tree of life. And hovering right above that tree of life is Quetzalcoatl, none other than Osiris. And what is Osiris known for? The tree of life, the tree of life symbol. And that's one other way that you know that Quetzalcoatl, or that Quetzal bird that is representative of Quetzalcoatl, is Osiris. Because that's exactly what Osiris was known for, is the imagery of the tree of life. At one of the Osiris temples, or actually different locations, one is this ancient etching of that tree of life, and they don't even know how it was done, because it appears to have been done by machine. And, well, of course, it was so old that there's no way that could possibly be. They don't know how it was done. Well, that was when his brother Set had tricked him to get into this casket-like coffin type thing, or this cabinet of some sort. And he said, well, whoever fits this, this is your gift, whatever. So Osiris goes in there, and he's a perfect fit. So the co-conspirators of Set, they decide that they jump in there real quick and nail it shut, and then they try to drown Osiris, and of course he goes down the Nile or whatever, and he ends up in Byblos or something like that, where he's entrapped into the trunk of a tree. Isis gets him out of there and then resurrects him, but before she has a chance to whatever she does, Set finds him and decides to cut him into 14 pieces and scatter his body, and Isis finds every single one of them except she can't find his pieces.
People don't really understand what the obelisk is.
Oh, okay, so watch this. Now, you remember I told you that there's all the gods are one and the same, that Ra, Enki, there's another god too. There's the god Shamash. Now, Shamash, he is the Babylonian god, so he's one and the same as Enki and all them as well, Enki, Ra, okay. So if you take a look at the Shamash wheel, I showed that in my video, that Shamash wheel is the same symbol that you're going to find that's right there in the Vatican lot right there, where the obelisk comes right up of the middle of it. Okay, so what you're looking at is the Osiris, the phallic symbol of Osiris, and it sits right there on the sun wheel. One is because it's father and son. That's the other thing that you find that's pretty interesting about the coming times. What we're talking about, the final days. So that's why I have my eyes, constantly upon the mainstream media. What little clues they could give me, I have to separate the spin of whatever they're talking about so I can garner, little tidbits of information. But believe me, I wish I was out there and able to do what you're doing right now on your computer. But,
yeah, I know the feeling. And so I did find a picture of that Osiris Tree of Life, and man, there's no way that just some people with some stone chisels did this. That is just so detailed.
Right,
that's amazing.
It looks like some kind of a weird mathematical.
Sacred geometry or something like that.
Right. Sacred geometry. There you go. That's you hit the perfect word. Sacred geometry. And what do they call it? They call it the light flower of Osiris.
It just says the Tree of Life.
And that's exactly what those kids right there that are huddled in the apocalyptic scenery, or I should say post-apocalyptic scenery on the Denver International Airport. There is that little Tree of Life. And hovering right above that little Tree of Life in that mural is the Quetzalcoatl bird. And so put that together. Quetzalcoatl, Osiris.
Mm-hmm.
One and the same. And then you have the Tree of Life. Hey, you know what? And here's another thing, too. And for everybody, here's something else that just came out in the past few years. I'd say about 4 years now, maybe 5. There was a movie called X-Men Apocalypse. Okay. So I tell you this, these secret society directors and everything, Roland Emmerich, the one who created Stargate, the one who created Independence Day, and then you have, I could go on, Bryan Singer, he's another guy that he does his thing. Ridley Scott, of course, everybody knows Stanley Kubrick is a Clockwork Orange and Eyes Wide Shut. He was giving us all clues in these movies. Okay, so X-Men Apocalypse. What did the main evil mutant say when Magneto was taken back to Auschwitz? And he goes, you shouldn't have brought me here. And then he asked the mutant, he asked him, he asked him, who are you? And what does the mutant say? He says, I have been known by many names over many lifetimes. I've been known by Elohim, I've been known as Shin, and I've been known as Ra. Ra is Elohim. As I've already said, that God of the Jews is one and the same. The six-pointed star, Sol Invictus, Ra, they're all one and the same, right? Okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So now it makes you kind of wonder, is this guy one and the same as? And I find that actually Magneto is Osiris, Zeus, Jupiter. That's what I find. But
because he's the sun.
And blow everybody up with that element that they harvest there on that planet. But in that movie, Stargate, Ra says, I am the one who started your civilization. In the movie Apocalypse, X-Men Apocalypse, what did he say? I'm the one who created mankind, and I am the one who has come back and set the forest ablaze and restarted new growth. So you're getting from two different directors, you're getting the exact same story. The other thing that's interesting about the two connections of the movie Stargate, the different directors, but same storyline, is that in the movie Stargate, Ra took over a young boy's body to rejuvenate himself, or reincarnation.
Oh, okay.
This is where a specific blood type, Rh negative, cannot be cloned. Why didn't Mr. What's his name just clone himself? If he's got the technology, why didn't Ra just clone himself and into a younger person and live on? He didn't have to do that because he reincarnated or uploaded his conscious into a young human boy. In the movie X-Men Apocalypse, what did the evil mutant Ra do? That's right, he uploaded his conscious in the very beginning of the movie, he took over a younger boy's body, a young man's body, and uploaded his conscious to it. And Professor Xavier, he tried to upload his conscious into him. Reincarnation. That's where the whole reincarnation comes from. So obviously RH positive. Obviously, there doesn't seem to be anything very specifically special about that blood type. But if you'll notice, like I said, our government seems to be trying to track certain RH negative blood types. Whether they're trying to track all RH negative blood types for a reason, but it is my belief that they're keeping track of specifically O negative blood types. Why? Because I've already told you the connection between the Osiris bloodline, or I should say Abraxas, the Abraxas bloodline.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said something about that, because I have, since the beginning, have always had my doubts about the whole push for the ancestry DNA test, because really what's going on there, like when you send these tests in, they're not just cataloging everybody's DNA. I think that there is like an ongoing campaign to either track certain bloodlines, or they're looking for somebody special. They're looking for a lost bloodline, or they want to keep tabs or how. But there definitely is something on. Just a couple weeks ago, there was a big article where the Department of Defense came out and said to military personnel that we do not want you to get these DNA tests. They pose a threat to national security, and they don't want military service members to get into home ancestry tests. And that was just another clue that I found that supports the fact that they're doing something with these ancestry tests that they're not telling everybody about.
So do you remember I was telling you that the evil mutant, and that's interesting, because what I'm about ready to tell you may well help you with 23andMe. Are you familiar with 23andMe?
It's just another home ancestry test, right?
Right, but there's a hell of a lot more to the number 23. There's the movie Jim Carrey when he made the movie 23.
Yeah.
When you watch the movie Deep Impact, and you'll see that the tunnel that they get ready to put everybody in, the million people, the Ark in Missouri, the tunnel right up above it is the number 23. In the movie Armageddon, the 2 and the 3 is right there. The two carriers that lead them up to the spaceship. There is.
You know what? There's in the show The Walking Dead, one of the main characters has a 23 necklace, and I've always wondered what that was supposed to represent, and I could never figure it out.
And I'm going to tell you right now what the number 23 represents. I'm going to tell you. So if you're watching the new 5G Verizon commercial and you're looking at the ambulance, as the ambulance is going down the street, the camera zooms into the back of the ambulance, and there's a big 23 on the back of it. If you watch the movie Suicide Squad and the helicopter that crashes, the helicopter right there with what's her name, Margot Robbie, plays Harley Quinn.
Mm-hmm.
Inside the helicopter, right on the frickin' door, is a big 23 right on there. In the movie, a couple of the different movies of the Transformers, in the warehouse right there, there's 23 all blasted right on the warehouse walls. Okay, so what does the number 23 represent? Well, the number 23 is the number to the alphabet of the letter W. And W is the Hebrew letter for the god Shin. Isn't that just just amazing? What they're doing is that's the secret society's way of venerating the other god other than Osiris. Remember, we were talking about Procter & Gamble venerating Osiris. So the number 23 is their secret way of venerating Sol Invictus, Shin, Ra, Enki, Elohim. He's one and the same. So the number 23, when you see that all over the place, that is your secret society's way of venerating the letter W, or the Hebrew letter for the god Shin. That is where you see, what's his name, Dr. Spock, the Vulcan, where he splits his finger, that vector symbol. But that is where you see that the Mr. Khan, the one who wrote the Harbinger series, he does the exact same, and he'll tell you that is for the letter Shin. Shin is the Hebrew letter for W, and that is the god Shin. That is the short for the Hebrew God. Shin is the Hebrew God.
So I knew that the number 23 meant a lot because I see it a lot also, but I just had never put it together like that. That's why you're the man. But we were joking. We were joking about how once you reach a certain level of awareness, then it seems like you either go to politics or prison because it's just you either play along or you fight it, one or the other.
Well, I think that's what sets apart Mr. Donald Trump. I think that what you'll notice about a lot of the past presidents, they were either left-handed or there's proof that they were Rh negative blood type. I think that Donald Trump may have been one of those opposing people that were put in there to put a stop to some of the plans that these Rh negative evil bastards were doing. Here's what's interesting. If you have a whole line of presidents that were Rh negative blood types, but only 15% of the world population comprises of Rh negative blood type, how is it that it could be that huge of a coincidence that only Rh negative blood types make it as president? That's because they're handpicked to go into the positions of presidency.
Yeah, and they're all related, too. They all have the same related Draco bloodline from Vlad the Impaler.
Right, exactly. So now you know why when they talk about royal blood or blue bloods or whatever, that's what they mean. Blue bloods, that's your Anunnaki blood type.
Yeah.
And that's why you see in that NASA image of Osiris, you'll see that he has a DNA strand around his neck of blue and green, right? That's right, because he's got Anunnaki blood, and that's the Alpha, the Omega. Osiris is Abraxas, one and the same, and he has Anunnaki blood, and he has a Gigi god blood. And I know that's probably going to be lost on a lot of people who are listening to this, and they're going to go, I'm lost. What is a Gigi? What is this? They may be familiar with Anunnaki, but not a lot of people are familiar with the Sumerian tablets, where there was actually the Gigi gods were the ones who were the slave labor originally before mankind was made to replace those. No, there we go with anybody wants to study up on the Gigi gods and how Marduk was an Gigi god and not an Anunnaki like his father Enki, please dive into the research, everybody, because I've done all this research and I try to share all of my findings with you all. Take the time to do it. You guys are going to get excited about what you find about who all of these different gods were.
That's what happens when you're recording live from the state penitentiary. Sometimes we got to deal with riot drills and fire alarms.
And here's the thing, for everybody out there, I want to just give you guys an update about Wolfgang Halbig, for anybody out there who wants to know about him. I do keep in contact with Wolfgang here as of late. I did talk to him a couple times, and especially that he was just arrested over Lenny Posner. And Wolfgang is doing good, and I'm going to try to set up an interview for Jesse here to do an interview with Wolfgang so you guys can get an update from Wolfgang on how he's doing and where everything's going with him. But I'm going to leave off with that because this fire alarm is making it really difficult to concentrate.
So I sent a book, but I hope it comes with the receipt. So you should be getting ISIS Unveiled in the next day or two.
Okay, ISIS Unveiled by Madame Blavatsky.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that there's a lot of people who are going to think that, well, why is he reading that? Well, you know what? You got to study everything.